firecrackers are being banned here because we don't want air pollution during Diwali, but perhaps they're preparing to light the fireworks in the United States in the Biden campaign as he seems to inch very slowly, cautiously and carefully towards the presidency and the White House. Now, it's fascinating what's been happening for the last 4 days. And I know it's an American election. It's not directly connected to what happens to India, but the world has been watching with what's been happening in the most powerful country in the world and one of the oldest democracies. So in the latest, Biden seems to have a lead in the state of Pennsylvania and is getting closer and closer. Meanwhile, what's really interesting and important to watch out for is how Trump is responding to all of this. There have been a bunch of lawsuits. There will possibly be more rhetoric in trying to claim that that election is fraudulent, that fake votes are being counted, etc. And we have to see how all of that plays out. Meanwhile, joining us in our coverage on this very important international and I think the biggest story in the globe right now is Chidanand Rajghatta, Narayan Laxman, Tanvi Madan and Geoff Dennis. Great to have all of you here. Geoff, let me begin by just getting your take on what's going on with US markets. They were on a roll all of this time when no one knew what was happening. And now when there seems to be a little more clarity that a Biden presidency is indeed going to be the final destination of this race, there seems to be a little shakiness in the markets. What's the mood out there?
Oh, I think it's Friday, and I think you're getting profit taking as well, and people just, settling down. It's been a crazy week, of course, and so I think nobody really wants to move the markets much one way or the other. The payroll numbers were a little stronger than expected, but didn't really move the needle very much, I think. And I think the markets are probably getting used to what's inevitably going to happen now, at least it looks like it's going to happen, which is that we're going to have congressional gridlock with the Senate remarkably staying Republican. The House, of course, is going to stay Democrat. And with Biden in the White House, it's going to be difficult to see what policy changes you're going to be able to get through the Congress anyway. You may be able to announce certain things by executive order. But so the bottom line here is that we're going to get political gridlock. The market liked that earlier in the week. It brought interest rates down. It brought the dollar down. Now we're just seeing some profit taking. We're waiting for the final rights to all of this, which is that Biden's going to win and Trump's going to try to stop it and he's not going to succeed. And we're going to have a new president on the 20th of January.
So this quote that has come in from the Trump campaign a short while ago saying the false projection of Joe Biden as the winner is based on results in 4 states that are far from final. Tanvi Madan, it's great to have you on the show again. Tell me how you see the situation unfolding, and is there going to be a lot more of drama and suspense up ahead?
Well, I think we can almost guarantee there'll be drama, but I think the question is, how do you see other Republicans start to react? Do you see the messaging, the White House, that they need to kind of accept the election results, and particularly Pennsylvania, which won't necessarily be close by the time the results come out? Biden is also leading in a number of other states, though that might change and might be much closer. The Republicans will be thinking about, how they want to, how they see Trump being, what they see him doing. Will he run again? Will he continue to be, and it seems that he would, influential amongst the party that will shape how they also deal with him in the next few weeks in terms of what they're telling him. One thing to watch, though, is there was more certainty at the beginning of this, or just after the election, that there was going to be a Republican Senate. There's a little bit of uncertainty there because we don't know this yet, but it looks like the 2 Georgia Senate races one we know will go to a runoff. The second one we don't know and Georgia might take some weeks to actually certify their results. And so that's something to watch because that could determine control of the Senate, which in turn will determine the appointments that potentially a President-elect Biden could make, also the issues, whether it's trade, immigration, handling the coronavirus, the stimulus package. So I think you'll see a little bit of uncertainty. And the other thing to watch, of course, is this transition period. Regardless of what happens, President Trump is still president till January 20th at noon. and he does have certain things he can do. So these are the things I'm watching. But I think, there is some sense amongst the Democrats. There's a debate amongst them in terms of why they didn't do better in the House and Senate races in particular. And so you'll see a debate even on the left, which is amongst the progressives and moderates, that will feed into what Biden can do and not do. But I will add just one thing. Some people have already written off a Biden presidency, but presidents have had kind of, tight margins before and done a fair bit. So it will depend on how he deals with Congress, how Mitch McConnell, potentially, if he's majority leader, will deal with him. And in some ways is actually not a better person than former Senator Joe Biden to be able to deal with this. I think what this will mean is a lot of focus on domestic policy, but I think you will see this have an impact on foreign policy and therefore India's options and landscape as well.
Absolutely. I think the foreign policy aspect is also part of why the world is watching this so closely, because of the influence that America wields, let's be honest about it, on the world map, as well as the spectacle that is turning out to be. Chidanand, great to have you back again. You said yesterday it was like a banana republic, the way the votes were being counted and how it was all unfolding. Explain to me one thing, that if Trump is ranting sitting in the White House, why is his entire party backing him on those rants? I mean, I look at the American media and different sections of it, and it's as if it's functioning in two parallel worlds with parallel sets of facts depending on who their viewers are.
I don't know. I don't know if I agree with the premise of this question. I'm not sure the entire party is backing him. Some Republicans are starting to peel away. I saw Mitt Romney, who's of course been skeptical of Trump for quite some time, issue a statement saying he does not agree with Trump and his approach to this whole counting business. The other important players, Chris Christie, I saw, Rick Santorum, a bunch of them. But yeah, fundamentally, the people behind him, the base is still solidly with him. And, Trump is emboldened by the fact that his base has grown. I mean, he's, we're going to poll around 70 million votes by the time this is over. He was at 60 million in the last election, even accounting for the population increase. That is a significant growth. So yeah, his base is very loyal. So he's going to fight it out to the bitter end. He's made that very clear. There will be no concession speech, and he's the president for the next 10 weeks or so. He's going to rally. A lot of Republicans now also understand that because the base has grown, because it's solidly behind Trump, they actually fear, the 2022 elections, for instance. I mean, the next midterm elections, the entire House of Representatives will go up again in 2022. There'll also be a bunch of, 1/3 of the Senate. So people are already looking to the next election and realizing that even assuming that, Biden clinches it in terms of numbers and becomes president, there is another election. The United States is in a perpetual election cycle. So people are already talking of 2022, 2024. And there is now a realization that, even if he loses and, Trump is not going to fade away, into the shadows. He will be very much there. In fact, he might even most certainly he will, run for office again in 2024 if possible. So yeah, the big story here is that Trump is going to win 70 million votes and will have a solid base. There is talk that even if Biden is inaugurated as president on January 20th, Trump rallies will begin soon after. So he has galvanized the party. I think everyone has to acknowledge that. The reasons are many and complicated, but he has the backing of a huge number of Americans. The thing is, everyone spoke of a blue wave, and Trump spoke of a red wave. The fact is, there was a blue wave and a red wave. I mean, it's phenomenal. The turnout, went through the roof. Both sides have won. I mean, for instance, Biden has polled more votes than any other, candidate in history, Democrat or Republican for that matter. I mean, it's staggering, 72 or 73 million votes. We don't know how much it'll be this thing. And Trump has, polled close to 70 million votes. So there was a blue wave and the red wave, and except that the blue wave was late in arriving and turned out to be, bigger than the red wave.
Yeah. Just an update here that I'm seeing off the news wires, that there will be a recount in Georgia. That's coming in from the state's Secretary of State, who said this during a news conference, and Biden holds a narrow lead there over President Trump in Georgia. So yeah, it's almost like a ball-by-ball commentary. Narayan Laxman, just looking at it from a little bit of distance, and I see this all around me, how everyone has just gotten so involved in this. Why do you think that this particular political fight and this presidential election is resonating with so many people around the world?
Well, Tamanna, I think that's because what has happened in the US was, in a sense, seeing echoes in many other parts of the world. Obviously, Brexit itself preceded the 2016 US election. And, there's any other number of countries where you could look at what you could broadly call either populist or nativist movements. And the world has, in a sense, moved a little bit forward from the globalization, Bretton Woods consensus, not saying that it's left it behind, but something palpable has shifted. And so I think, in a sense, people have come to regard the US as the country that, signals the way forward, in a sense. And obviously, people who observe it closely also look at what's happening within the population. And I think both Tanvi and Chidu sort of were talking about this in a way. There is distinctly two different blocks of voters and citizens that have sort of emerged over the last 4+ years. And basically, to me, it looks like the 70 million who voted for, or nearly 70 million voting for Trump, are going to continue to be very vocal and are going to continue to exert their influence on public policy one way or the other, maybe through Congress, maybe through different forms of activism on the street. You can't rule out anything. And of course, Trump will himself, as Chidu rightly said, continue to be sort of a loose cannon candidate, with, of course, with a very well-defined agenda for himself and his supporters who fervently back him. And so whether you're looking at 2024 or even the things that can happen between now and then, the whole world is watching to see how America now takes the next step after it has taken the series of steps which have completely altered the topography of global institutions. Whether they're talking about multilateralism, whether they're talking about big treaties, the Paris Climate Accord, the deal with Iran, so many of these things have changed. Will they be clawed back? Will they be reversed? Or will the agenda continue moving forward? China, of course, is the big question, where it was really interesting for people even outside the US to see how, in fact, even Vice President Biden has shifted in his own views on China. And possibly some part of that was in response to Trump's very sort of focused attacks on he's claiming that he was soft on China, because Trump obviously himself had questions raised about whether he, reacted quickly enough and what steps he took. And of course, we all know the rest is history about how he dealt with the pandemic or failed to deal with it. But then it is very interesting to actually see how Biden seems to have shifted in his own rhetoric. So all I'm trying to say is I think all of these changes happening within the US, especially during this election, certainly have very firm linkages to major shifts that we've seen over the last 4 years in the foreign policy arena. And I think we're going to be watching with great interest to see what shape that takes in the coming 4 years.
Chidanand, what do you make of this announcement that has come in, this bit of breaking news, that there will be a recount in Georgia? Does this mean that the whole process takes much longer? And if you can explain for our viewers, as the situation stands, is the possibility of a Trump second term completely ruled out? It's just about counting everything and reaffirming that Biden is the next president?
Is that for me, Adesh? Sorry.
Yeah.
It's for Chidanand. It's for Chidanand Rajghatta.
Thank you, Tamanna. As best as I can understand, a recount process is fairly swift. It should not be as prolonged as what has happened. It all depends on state laws. As we know by now, in the US, every state has its own set of election laws. And in many states, if the margin of difference is 1% or less, candidates can apply for a recount. But the one striking statistic I've seen is that when there is a recount, the vote shifts typically by an average of 200 or 250 points. It's within the hundreds. It's never in the thousands. So if Biden is ahead by, say, I don't know what the latest figure in Georgia is, if it's 1,000 or 1,500 or 2,000 votes, he should be fine. The Trump campaign has said that they will ask for recounts in Wisconsin, where Trump is behind. The state has already been called. He's behind by 20,000 votes. Nobody expects, that it'll sort of change significantly. And even if Georgia changes, it looks like, Pennsylvania, for instance, Biden is going to win. In fact, he'll have enough of a cushion that if a recount in one or two states, changes, he'd still have a comfortable majority. The thing is, purely in terms of numbers, it seems that Biden has already clinched it or is close to clinching it, and it only needs to be formally called. But the litigation will go on, and that is something that nobody can anticipate. Trump has said that he will fight till the bitter end. He will take it to the Supreme Court. He was very clear yesterday that he actually expects, the Supreme Court, to rule in his favor. Many of his associates have said, in as many words, that they have, managed the Supreme Court in such a way that they expect that to be the deciding factor. So we don't know how it will play out, but expect a considerable legal wrangling to go on for some time. The happy news for the Democrats is so far the Supreme Court has been fairly restrained and generally allowed state courts, and because the election laws are so state specific, to stand. They have not overruled lower court judgments in many cases. But if you remember I don't know how many people remember, in 2000, it just went on and on. It took 35 days, in the Bush-Gore election for the Supreme Court to rule. And at the end of it, it was really ugly through the process. The state was decided by 527 votes or something like that. The entire 270 electoral votes came down to that one state and about less than 1,000 votes. That was really, really narrow. And the important takeaway there was, at the end of it, much as Democrats felt really cheated because a lot of votes were not counted in Florida, Al Gore finally conceded and made a very, very graceful concession speech. It was quite remarkable after all that bitterness. But nobody is expecting Donald Trump to either concede, much less make a concession speech. So this will go on, this will drag on right till the bitter end. And we really don't know legally where it will end, even if electorally it's a clear win for Joe Biden.
All right, let me just, figure out how markets also responding to this right now. Chidanand Rajghatta spoke about it going on and on in the 2000 election, and perhaps that will happen this time around as well, with Georgia saying now that a recount might take till the end of November. So we're in for the long haul. Geoff Dennis, how do you think markets will respond to this? Right now, flat to negative. All of this time, markets seem to be on their own different trip. What are the factors that we're going to see going ahead?
Before I answer that, can I just add to the last really good set of comments that were made? I think it's worthwhile if you compare 2000 with today. 2000 was one state, which was very, very close, of course, by definition. Hanging chads was the thing there. I think if my math is correct, Biden can lose two states and still win the election. He could lose Pennsylvania. I guess he can't. If he loses Pennsylvania and Georgia, even, he's basically there. He's at 269 or 270. I can't remember. I'm sorry, but he's basically there. So this is going to have to be a dramatic overturn, I think, for Biden not to win. So I am of the view that however long this litigation goes on, that at the end of the day it will be a Biden presidency. Anyway, sorry to digress here. On the markets, I think what's probably going to happen is you will get another COVID-19 fiscal package of some sort in the lame duck period of this Congress. Maybe as all of this stuff is going on, a perfectly legal, perfectly acceptable recount in Georgia, for example, maybe one or two other states as well. Let's talk about a recount in Wisconsin, for example. I think you'll get that sort of package, and that will provide some ballast for the economy, which I think needs it. Now, I know the unemployment rate's coming down, and I know the payroll numbers are improving, but clearly, as Fed Chairman Powell said yesterday, this economy still needs a lot of help, and they will continue to provide that help to backstop the economy. And if necessary, will add to the purchasing of various forms of assets in the economy if that provides more liquidity and more support for the economy. And so I think what the markets are saying to a certain extent is we are going to get some more help on the fiscal side at some point. And you know, bond yields remain low. I've said this many times on your network, and with bond yields being relatively low, it's not clear where else people are going to put their money. The global economy will slowly recover, albeit erratically, I think. And I think the weaker dollar that you're probably going to get out of this as well, perhaps because you don't get a massive Biden-driven fiscal package when he comes into office, because of the lack of a majority in the Senate, although I do accept the point that was made by Tanvi about the Georgia special elections could still give you that majority for the Democrats. I think with probably not being as big a fiscal package as people hoped, that is what's going to keep interest rates lower. That's what is going to push the dollar down. And you're going to get Biden focusing, I think, on improving the situation vis-a-vis global trade as well. And all of that's going to be good for the global economy. The markets are reflecting all of that. And then don't forget, markets like to worry about things beforehand, you know, sell the rumor, buy the news. We've now got a Biden presidency. We've got to go through all the legalistic stuff for sure. But we've got a Biden presidency almost certainly, 99% certain. And in the markets are saying, okay, let's now move on. The global economy does better. Rates are low. The dollar's falling. It's probably good for the global economy. And I think that's what the markets are doing here with this rally this week. And today, forget today. It's just a profit take today, basically.
Yeah. Tanvi, I just want your response to the news that is coming in from Georgia, that there will be a recount. They might not certify the vote until end of November. Does this throw things off track, or does it just delay the process further?
It doesn't throw things off track as long as Biden, and he's expected to increase his gain in Pennsylvania. And let me just explain why. Most of the outstanding votes in Pennsylvania, and there's still tens of thousands of them, are in areas where he is on pace to get almost 70 to 80% of those votes. So he is likely to increase his gain in Pennsylvania. As long as he continues and holds, and they call Pennsylvania for him, he can lose every outstanding state, Arizona, right, Georgia, North Carolina, Nevada, and he will still be president-elect Biden. And so, you know, Georgia, this is normal. As Chidu said, you know, if you fall below a certain threshold, either it's automatically there's a recount or you can request one. The other thing in any case about Georgia, they weren't going to call it for a couple of other reasons. They have something called provisional ballots, which are kind of local people who go there and they have to, you know, they give new ballots that they've already submitted mail ones, and overseas ballots. And that's anywhere from, they're saying, about 7,000 to 15,000. And those were not expected to come in for a while. Overseas ballots tend to come in from military folks, expats. So in any case, we weren't going to have certainty about that. But as long as Pennsylvania, this is why Pennsylvania was such a big deal. Now, there were some Trump advisors suggesting that the Pennsylvania legislature could step in and name its own kind of Trump-friendly electors. Now, at least yesterday, the head of the Republican delegation in the Pennsylvania Senate, who is a Republican, said, no, we will not do that. We will respect the voters. But, you know, we will see how far Trump pushes these legal avenues, and so there might be uncertainty. But one other thing to watch is, do people start moving on? Do the news channels stop carrying Trump's speeches? Does Twitter start to suspend him, as they have said? Do some of these platforms go where the oxygen is taken out of the room, at least for a while? Biden will potentially have a transition team and start working on that. This is what these few next couple of months are usually used for. And so I think there could be a difference. The Trump administration has to work with these in normal circumstances. An outgoing administration would work with the transition team. We don't know if that'll happen. So it could be an unusual transition. But as long as this holds, whether or not Trump appears at inauguration, whether or not he gives a concession speech, whether or not he accepts it, if these things hold, if in December when the electors meet and they ratify and certify the will of the voters, on January 20th, he will be President Biden, no matter what happens in terms of what Trump says. One other thing to watch, though, is some of Trump's supporters. If they continue to inflame passions and say this election is stolen, do they come out of the streets? So far, we have not seen that. We've heard some reports. But this will also depend, as I said at the beginning, in terms of how Republicans react to the Republican leadership and the messages they're sending to the Trump team.
Absolutely. So it's exciting. It's going to be a bit of a longer wait. Don't think there will be any clarity tonight either. But thank you so much to all of you for coming in and adding your perspective for our audiences here as we continue to watch this unfolding suspense in the race to the White House. Truly an election that has captivated all of our imagination, even though we have no direct stake in it at all.